Earth signs Capricorn, Taurus and Virgo. Welcome to the Pisces Lunar Eclipse. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Capricorn Rising, welcome to your reading for the Pisces Lunar Eclipse, happening very soon on Wednesday the 18th of September at 12:36 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So, eclipse portal open. Here we go. It's coming for us. If you've been with me a while, you know that the definition of eclipses is really unpredictable. We don't quite know what may happen, and we can probably gently come to predict that something will happen, but the energy is really unstable. Particularly when thinking about the moon and what we tend to have come to rely on from the moon, which is a bit of room to emotionally regulate. And not to predict it, might not happen, but when it comes to your feelings, because we're speaking about Pisces, we're speaking about the sign of the zodiac that dissipates into the vast open ocean and has the feelings of others permeate their being and has psychic connections abound here, there and everywhere. When we think about Pisces, we think about someone really sensitive, really in need of encouragement, and who has a need to be alone often too because of that sensitivity. So if we can think about Pisces in that terminology and we can relate that to ourselves, we can invite some of that sort of understanding into our own nature too. I know for one, I've been very, very, very hard on myself on one hand, and on the other hand, I've been just like, let it go, let it all go. My structure has really dissipated. My ability to schedule and to focus has really been hard to ascertain and hard to glean. I'm getting there and I'm doing it, but still it's just been like, it's been weird. It's probably the easiest way to explain it. And this is the sort of eclipse portal opening. You know, we'll close eventually, but we've got to contend with these lunations. So looking at your birth chart, Capricorn Rising, Pisces is the sign that rules your third house, which is the house of, in Hellenistic astrology, the house of the goddess. We speak about the village, we speak about private ritual, personal ritual, we speak about sharing information with our voices rather than with our writing so much or reading it in books. It's education of knowledge from experience. The moon, normally, without eclipses, is great in the third house, loves it in the third house. There's actually an auspiciousness to any kind of passing by of the moon through your third house. At this time, we've got the dragon to contend with. So when I say the dragon, I mean the lunar nodes, the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. So right now the head, the North Lunar Node, is still in Aries, but the moon is close enough to that point where it's partially eclipsed. So we're beginning a story of eclipses in Pisces and in Virgo that will continue for the next 18 months or so. So moving away from eclipses or sitting down perhaps the eclipse story of your fourth house, of your home and your root structure, we're now moving into the house of the goddess. We're moving into something that feels more like a neighborhood or feels more like a, there's something, I wouldn't say communal, but there's something cooperative about the third house. Now with the dragon about to enter into there and with this eclipse story starting, I'd be very surprised, Capricorn Rising, if you didn't start to feel either compelled to really get stuck into your magical practice. Now this might seem a bit off track, but we're speaking about the third house and the house of the goddess. So I'm talking tarot, I'm talking energy work, I'm talking learning about your astrology, maybe. That could be more ninth house. But I'm talking about ritualizing your day. What parts of your life would you consider a ritual? And there's really mundane ones. There's ones, brushing your teeth should be a ritual. Having your coffee in the morning, reading the paper, they're all little rituals of the day. Cleaning up after, to chill out, doing the gardening, watering the plants. That's a beautiful ritual. With a certain lens, they can also be really magical, especially when it comes to nature. So earth witch, nature witch stuff, just because it's Pisces, just because it's eclipses often bring with it a compulsion with the dragon's head. So that's one example of how this story might play out. Thinking about the last time that there were eclipses in Pisces, with the dragon facing Pisces, it was from March 2006 to February 2008. So it's a little while ago. But if we can, and this is the way that I have been really helping myself to learn astrology, is by thinking in retrospect, looking at a certain configuration. When was the last time that happened? What was occurring for me in my life? And what's the common thread with these definitions? So from March 2006 to February 2008, think about your belief in magic. I mean, I think that's a great thing to do whenever we discuss Pisces, is a belief in magic. As far as your location is concerned, your locale, this area of your life has the emphasis. And so eventually next year in opposition, that dragon's tail will be requiring you to release or to shed in the 9th house. Now the 9th house has a set out and journey and travel. So that's one thing that you might need to settle into, the idea of that's off the cards, or I need to settle into this new place that I've journeyed to. This is my new village, my new neighborhood. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it on that sort of spiritual, magical pathway is that the emphasis on your 3rd house, your village witch, is taking precedence over something else structured in religion. There may be old spiritual truths or spiritual traditions that you feel falling away from yourself during this beginning of this eclipse journey. It's a long one. It's going to go for all of next year and then a little bit of 2026 too. So it's nice to talk about it in so far as what could we imagine to start happening in our lives with the dragon facing into Pisces. Maybe in 2006 to 2008, if you've got diaries, I'd encourage you to go back through them and start examining, looking at the ways that you interacted with magic. I know for a lot of us, when we were children, it was real, it was the truth. And then there was a certain period of rationality that was drummed into us, and maybe a certain period of protection too. If we had experiences with organized structures of religion, it had our realism really implant into our psyche, because we were like, don't tell me that that's the case. I refuse to believe that those parameters or this condemnation from your scripture. That's one example. But you can see that polarity between private, quiet, sharing of information with voice, as opposed to broad, wide, academic, available 9th house work. To separate all of the spirituality from it, it could be something to do with neighborhood. It could be something to do with, right, I'm here, I have to be here for the next 18 months. I have to let go of some of my wanderlust or some of my grand adventure, or maybe I've landed at the place that I was lusting after and now I have to make it work for me. I have to learn, you know, who's my butcher, who's my baker, you know, where's the local cafe, all of that kind of stuff. That might be really pertinent to you as far as, you know, the investment over the next period of eclipses there. In my very own experience and different signs to you, but the last time that I had eclipses in my 3rd house and my 9th house was fairly recently, and it took me a little while to figure out what was going on, but it was really during the period when I really fully invested in my storytelling, and when I set down my internalized limitations, when I let the flow happen, when I really remembered that I love to tell stories, and I received from a lot of you, I've got to say, some lovely support in that. My spirituality as far as tarot and as far as sharing information with my voice, you know, emphasis as far as the sort of, you know, the academic side of things, or kind of learning, studying, trying to master something, sort of fell aside for a while, and I was really held in place in you know, the environment that I was in too. So as far as the village is concerned, that was really obvious too. And the dragon had me insatiable, hungry to learn. And not only was I telling stories, I was listening to stories too. And it really, really helped and was really exciting and really great. There's time for the 9th house always, you know, and your 9th house might be, you might be like, no, but I've got all of this stuff that I want to like get up and out there. This isn't to say that these eclipses are going to veto any of that, but I'd simply say, Capricorn Rising, it might be an emphasis on like learning the language of wherever you find yourself. That's another thing too. Like the 3rd house has got so much to do with language. This is a language. Tarot is a language. Astrology is a language. And so, yeah, that's how I can relate eclipses, because they were quite recent, you know. That's how I can explain it to you from my experience. Let's get some tarot and see what else is going on. How's Pluto in Capricorn going, by the way? Are you all right? It's all right. Reprieve will happen in November. But interesting for us all to just really sit with this, this knowledge. What I will say as well, Capricorn Rising, I hope that these aren't confusing. I'm either can't string 2 words together, or I'm just a chatterbox. That's just the way that I am. But looking at this astrology, and in that topic of like 9th house expansion, journeying, learning, publishing, all those things that we do in the 9th house that are really, they feel really like they're feeding the mind, you know. After this eclipse in Pisces, which is sort of like, whew, 3rd house, what's going on here in the house of the goddess? In your house of the gods, there's a great deal of support and activation that's occurring the week after. I've got all of the dates written down, but it's sort of like one after the other. I won't go through one by one, but I will say that your 9th house has, that there's information being handed to you, and there's probably strategies and things that you can understand about that too. If you're planning, you know, great journeys next year, or tours next year, or if that's your hope, and you know, you might find that this eclipse season is constructive in the way of like either locking that in, or getting the no, or whatever felt murky and a bit difficult to ascertain earlier on this year is going to become very clear. The Sun and Mercury are shooting down lines of support to Pluto in your 1st house. So we've got to remember, you know, you're not the same. You know, this. What is this rebirth? What's the outcome of this beautiful revelation? And also Taurus in your 5th house of your creativity. Off the track. If you're publishing a book, This is just one, like I'm just thinking, because the ninth house can speak to publishing and putting, you know, laying down what we know. So with the tail there, you might be shedding, putting it out there. That might be something that's happening too. If that's the case, then this eclipse season, as unpredictable as it might be, there might be some really good stepping stones for you as to getting that organized. You know, if Mercury is in Virgo, Mercury in Virgo wants to get it organized. And it's supporting your fifth house of your creativity and your first house of your sense of self. So this could be something else too. I know that there's many options that I put out there on the table, Capricorn Rising. I hope they're not confusing. The tarot is saying, hang in there. And maybe as I've been talking about all of this stuff, you've been like, shit, I've been like really cramming, or I've been really trying to get this thing activated, this thing off the ground and working. I've been busting my hump for ages now. The tarot can see that here, this energy of like fucking grinding my gears, but I'm getting it out there, I'm getting it organized, getting it done, getting it over the line. And at this moment, during eclipse season, there's something about the liminal space. There's something about the beauty of inaction, of letting it take you, letting it open up. So third house in Pisces, ninth house in Virgo, all of this great work that Mercury is doing in Virgo to dissipate, to spread information. Perhaps you can be like, right, send, all right, done. Perhaps I'm just going to use this eclipse season to coast a little bit. Because the last thing I want you to do is to start second guessing yourself when you should be relaxing. If this is the case, if it's a whole bunch of this really hard work and it's a metaphorical, let it go, and do not let the swords start to infiltrate, and to not start to think, oh, I should have, maybe I'm not, who am I to even think that I could? No. If we're going to work with, this is the hanged one, so this is about being strung up by the foot and just being like, wow, enlightenment. Look at this from upside down. Let it go. Do nothing. That's what everyone encourages you to do in eclipse season. I hope that I haven't labored that with too much, like you've got to just, for the next couple of weeks, just let it go, especially if you've just done the proverbial send, or you're about to, you know, if you're gearing up to send out a whole bunch of applications out or whatever, you know, like, whew, send, laptop down for the moment, closed for business. That's your reading, Capricorn Rising. It does feel kind of like goosebumps just talking about it. It does feel like spooky, like who knows what's going to happen. But I kind of like it. If you'd like to read, or if you would like to learn more about what I know of the dragon, the lunar nodes, the dragon's head and tail, I'm going to be holding a workshop on them at Muses of Mystery on the 29th of September. So for an hour, there'll be a group of us and we'll sit around. I'll share with the group what I know of the lunar nodes, how I've managed to figure out how they might have their effect on my life and in the world around us. And also we'll look at the different ways that the dragon has been interacting with your chart too. We won't be sort of doing any sort of astrological work, as it were, because it is eclipse season, so it's better that we just sort of allow it to wash over us, as the hanged one does. But if you'd like to learn more, come along. I'll leave the link in the description. You can book your ticket via Muses of Mystery. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, head to my website, umaruby.com, and I will draw you a birth chart that looks like this, and I'll read it to you via Zoom, and then I will post it to you in the mail so you have the hard copy. If you'd like to support my work, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and put some money in the tip jar. Thank you so much for your support, Capricorn Rising. I love you very much. I'll be with you in good time to give some more of a pep talk around the next eclipse, which is a solar eclipse in Libra, which has its direct link to October of last year. So a lot of things for us to work with and work through, and keep an open heart as best we can. Big love to you. Bye. Hello Taurus Rising, welcome to your reading for the Pisces lunar eclipse happening very soon, this Wednesday the 18th of September at 12:36 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So we're in the eclipse portal right now. We know that the energy is unstable, it's inconsistent, we can't rely on it. So what we're going to do is examine the dragon itself. So I say the dragon because the lunar nodes, or the points of eclipse on the zodiac, can be represented by the head of a dragon and the tail of a dragon. And on your birth chart, they'll be set in place. In transit, they move around our chart and they bring extra focus to a certain aspect of our life, or certain planets if they exist in that house. And some of the definitions, like in every kind of astrology, they tend to vary. There's language in the Vedic tradition about karmic destiny and karmic past. That's one really solid way of explaining what the dragon might bring. I tend to think about, in retrospect, my own life and what the eclipses have brought about in my experience. In retrospect, it's been really great for my processing of things like grief, after the fact, but also just in my own education of the astrology. And it's not always felt so karmic. It's not always felt so destined. Another great way of explaining the nodes of the dragon is that in the ancient times, there was a lot of fear around eclipses, because everyone thought that there was, or people were told there was a dragon eating the sun or eating the moon, There was worry around the harvest and around the luminaries being blocked out for a time. If you didn't know what was going on, it would be really scary. So that's where we sort of tie in that unstable feeling, that sort of worry or friction. Another way is to sort of think about, like, if you pulled the socket out of all of the lights, like a blackout for a moment, the cat amongst the pigeons kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, we can't mechanize astrology. It's not a machine. It doesn't happen like clockwork. You know what I mean? The way that the aspects or the transits, the way they emanate changes over time too, and the way that our consciousness reacts to those things as well changes over time. What I'd like for you to do, if you can, Taurus Rising, is maybe you can start to think about your life from the period, let's say March 2006, February 2008. If you can think that far back, if you're old enough, there might be some examples in there as to what these eclipses that we're being set up for now, there might be an emulation or a similarity with the topics. So the dragon is still in Aries and the tail is still in Libra at present. We've got a Libra solar eclipse to contend with in 2 weeks. But the moon in Pisces is close enough to that dragon that it's partially eclipsed at this time. And so it's beginning a story. The eclipses in Aries and Libra will wrap up next year, and then we'll be full-time Pisces Virgo for a while. So on your birth chart, Taurus Rising, Pisces is the sign that rules your 11th house of your friendships, your sense of community, and your sense of belonging in a group. And Virgo represents your 5th house of your creative self-expression. So let's just focus on your 11th house for this little bit of the explanation of the astrology, Taurus Rising. Think about what friendship means to you. Think about what kinship means to you. Think about how you sew in some of that personality of Pisces into those friendships as well. There's something that you really is probably really necessary for you to feel connected you know, in some sort of cosmic way, that you probably, I would imagine, have a lot of soulmates in this life, Taurus rising, and that's really beautiful. That's really generous of you, and it's really comforting, especially when you sort of come into friendships or a group of people where you feel that you belong and you feel, cosmically connected in some capacity. So again, 2006 to 2008, think about that fraction of time. The dragon, in its robustness, can sometimes have us feel really frenetic, or it can feel like it's a deluge. It can feel that we're kind of insatiable. So looking at this astrology and looking at your birth chart, we might be setting ourselves up for a period of time, as you've been really contending with those eclipses in Aries, in your 12th house of your unconscious world, this clarity that you're finding around your people, around who you wish to spend your days with, or what your community, what you desire in your community. This is where we start to think about this dragon sort of like bringing all of that information from the 12th into the 11th now, imbuing the 11th, your friends, your connections, with this ferocity. Sometimes it might be really tense and it might be really scary. Sometimes it might be really beautiful and it might be really helpful. In my experience with my chart and thinking about the dragon and its forward-facing moment, I've sometimes really not found myself in life where I've not wanted all of this excess from whichever house the dragon was facing, and I have had to grapple with loss where the tail is. That doesn't always happen though. So again, I'd like for you to interact with your own astrology. Think about your life from March 2006 to February 2008 as a bracket of time, you know, entering into the late 2000s, thinking about community, thinking about your place in the community, thinking about how you cosmically interact with that community. Now, at this particular eclipse, the dragon's still in Aries, but as I said, it's close enough to eat some of that moon. The sun and the moon, the sun's in Virgo, moon's in Pisces, Jupiter is in Gemini, and there's a square that's happening with this lunation. So Jupiter and Pisces really get along. They work well together. Jupiter is the guiding light for Pisces. So it might be good, it might not. We don't know. But I'd be interested to hear if there was some sort of connection between your kind of livelihood, your sense of financial structure and stability. Think about the different ways that there's been a sort of exacerbation or an over-examination on those systems, how they've been working out for you, and how if is there some sort of link between money and friendship, and what is this dragon revealing? Now, I'm just reminded of an example that I could think of sometimes when so devoted to the work, our friendships or our community often involves people in the similar sort of line of work. It's just the way that it happens. There's only so many hours in a day. And when you're a particularly creative types, but, not always, in fact, it's probably a commonality that you'll find that your friendships are built around those that are, within your profession. So what, in the aftermath, I'd like for you to come back to me, Taurus Rising, and we can further discuss this idea of like journey of the dragon, looking to feed the soul, looking to find my people, looking to find my, I don't want to say find my tribe. It's maddening. I get it. I understand completely what it means, but it just has so many connotations that are repellent to me at this time. And I wish that they weren't. And a word is a word. But this could have something to do with it too. There might be something that you're feeling in sort of spiritual community, and the dragon's urging you to get to the root of the truth of those connections rather than the platitudes. That's difficult but important work, I've got to say, because we can get swept up in the chatter or the speak. You know, we can learn the language, but if we're not feeling the language, and if we're not feeling the connection that's being purported, that can be dangerous, because then we can start to think that we're in deficit in some way, that we've done something wrong. Really, the dragon might be urging you to look at the integrity and the authenticity of the message of the group. That's a strange thing to say, but maybe that might be making sense for you. If we look forward to next year when the tail will land in Virgo, there will be something you might feel around, there might be parts of your individual selfhood or the way that you express yourself. There might be also access to your own pleasure that you might need to sort of loosen your grip on. It could simply be the idea of, like, you've been working up on a creative project to a point where it's time to start, you know, you start feeling it sort of permeate and release, and it starts to get out there. It starts to attract some 11th house, some friendships, some community. Don't really know any of this for sure. I'm trying to sort of keep my personal experience out of these readings as well, but I might write about it. It might be worth it, and maybe this might help you in your further study of the dragon too. Let's get some tarot. I've written down all of these transits. So from the eclipse, then there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening in Virgo. So in your creative world, in the way that you express yourself, your 5th house. So I won't go through them all. Know that eclipse season is unpredictable as it might feel. And remember, we're going from a Pisces eclipse to a Libra eclipse as well. So we're talking further to a story that began in October last year that has got a lot to do with justice and our sense of justice or injustice. So that feels really important to me and to us. Know as well that there is room for play in this time for you, and there is room for the creative juices and the inspiration to continue to flow. You'll be happy to know that Mercury, the guiding light for Virgo, is back in Virgo, back in your creative zone, and they've actually, the Sun and Virgo both are forming these really beautiful, precise trines with the outer planets, so with Pluto and with Uranus in Taurus, in your selfhood. So back to those topics around rebellion, back to those topics around disintegration, destruction in order for new systems to grow, back to your art and what your art is speaking about in terms of those topics as well. It's all well and good to speak the speak, Taurus Rising, but we've got to walk the walk too. That's just one thing that's popped into my mind to say, but I think that you do, and I think that you will. These outer planets feel really pivotal too. It's like these last lessons for us in our lifetime, this idea of Uranus and Taurus and Pluto and Capricorn, we'll never experience them again. So I'm looking forward to the aftermath. I'm looking forward to what we discover and reflect upon. And I think that I'm also discovering too that that's my best technique for astrology. I think that there's, rather than looking to the future and trying to guess or predict what may occur. I mean, that's dumb. That's what the work is for. It also should be to look back upon too. And that's why I try and hopefully explain it to you in a way that makes sense. Because it can give us context for what we've lived through. As we reflect in reflection, the astrology is a great tool as well. It's not just for looking forward, it's also for looking back, because it does that. You get it. Okay, so the tarot is speaking quite directly. And I'm going to show you all three cards, I think, and then just tell you the story. There's a difference here that I can see. Yeah. Okay, go for it. I believe that true strength involves and includes something that feels like compassion. It takes strength to be compassionate to those that have wronged you or those that have hurt you. That's true strength. It takes bravery to hold some sense of compassion in your heart for those people, as much as we absolutely condemn past behaviors and we condemn that sort of abuse. Sorry, you understand what I mean? There's a time to be defensive and there's time to work in our defense, and that's natural. It happens to everybody to be defensive and to sort of have our back up and to lash out continually. You know, the attacked will often attack back to save themselves. That's natural, and I don't admonish or hold that against anyway. Lord knows I've done it a million times. That kickback is such a reflex, especially over time, when it's sort of, when you're in a situation again that feels like the past, like, oh God, not again. I can't. Why does this always happen to me? Why am I always treated this way? Why am I allowing myself? Why am I allowing my inner monologue to start attacking me too? And this could have something to do with that inner monologue, Taurus rising. Defense strategy is one thing. The other thing is the true definition of the strength card, which is compassion. And I think about the stoic goddesses in my life. I think about all of the people that I admire in my life that have been met with conflict, that have been met with abuse, that have been met with time and again advantage being taken. And I want to move towards their sturdiness. I want to move towards their centeredness. And this isn't to zip the lip and not speak about it, but it's just in the way that I approach these topics from now on. I really want to find myself in a place where I can have grace. I'm not there yet. And you don't have to be there yet either, Taurus rising. But we know that abusers often have been abused. And so when I think about my own behavior and I think about times in my life when I have been abusive myself, when either my words or my reaction has been very hurtful and I've lashed out or I've attacked, and I think about that sentiment of breaking the cycle. And how do we break the cycle? We must hold those in abusive positions of power to account for their actions. And then we must let that tension go, because we don't want that abusive behavior to affect us, and in turn for us to react to the world as an abuser. I think about the strength card and I think about people with a firm back and an open heart. I think about their chin up. I think about their grace. Countless angels that walk the earth, that against all odds have remained powerful in their grace. I'm not there, and you don't have to be there, but it's something to aspire to, which is different from gaining supremacy or control over a situation using the same abusive tactics that we were the victim of. So yeah, that's the reading, and maybe I mean, God, who knows what it's got to do with the astrology. Looking at that 11th house, though, community, friendship, sense of kinship and belonging, you know, fighting words up. Yeah. What are your fighting words? Yeah. Anyway, thanks for being here, Taurus Rising. If you would like to learn more about the nodes, I'm putting together a workshop. So if you're in Melbourne, at the Muses of Mystery, which is a shop that I read at on Sundays, I'm putting together a workshop in preparation for the Libra solar eclipse, but to examine the lunar nodes, the dragon, and what it might mean, what it could mean for us. The only way that we sort of develop our definition is by speaking about it and sharing. So I'm holding a little circle of folks that are interested in their astrology and interested in understanding more about the definitions of all the different aspects. So if you'd like to join, you can head to the Muses of Mystery website and book a place. It's in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support my work, you can head to buymeacoffee.com and put some money in the tip jar if you'd like to. That link is down there too. If you would like me to draw your birth chart, they look like this. You can head to my website, umaruby.com, and I'll draw you one and I'll read it to you via Zoom, and then I'll post it to you in the mail so you have the copy forevermore, a memory of our time together. Much love to you. I will be with you with a reading for the Libra solar eclipse, probably just in time for it. Yeah, lots of things happening all through this hectic eclipse season. I wish I could focus and get it all done. How about you? Love you. I'll speak to you later. Bye. Hello Virgo Rising, welcome to your reading for the Pisces lunar eclipse happening very soon, this Wednesday the 18th of September at 12:36 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So eclipse season has arrived, here we are. Now this eclipse season is interesting because the dragon, the lunar node, is still in Aries and the tail is in Libra. But this full moon in Pisces is close enough on the zodiac that it actually gets eclipsed. It's a partial lunar eclipse, but it's beginning a story for us. And it's something that we're going to kind of unpick together and feel out and look to describe to each other over the next 12 to 18 months. The dragon will eventually move into Pisces and the tail will move into Virgo. And so this is very personal for you on your birth chart, Virgo Rising. The house of your relationships, your nearest and dearest, those that you hold close, has an extra focus when the dragon is present. Thinking about the ways that there might be a necessity to look at your friendships, your loved ones, and your family. There might be issues that arise around those topics, or there might be, you know, it might be lovely. There might be just extra energy or extra information, more of a good thing. In opposition to that, the tail, it's not there yet. It will enter into there next year. But the eclipses in Virgo will start to emerge as 2025 hits. And so wherever the tail of the dragon lays in the astrological makeup, something that feels like loss or feels like shedding or feels like a loosening of a grip can tend to occur with the dragon's tail. Now, not every eclipse hits home so personally, you know, and not every time, you know, astrology isn't a mechanism. It's not a clock. It's not clockwork, as much as it would be more relieving if it was. But what I like about the difference between that mechanism or that clockwork mechanics and the organism that astrology is, there's room for it to wobble, there's room for us to experience it in a sort of more naturally unfurling kind of way. So thinking about your history, if you wanted to cast your mind back, if you can, to the period of March of 2006 into February of 2008. This might give you some clues as to a commonality or a similar kind of experience. There might be links back to that period of time to now that might show themselves. And so in the way that your selfhood in Virgo, your first house, your sense of self, and your soul's rising intention, if you like, your essence, thinking about the unpeeling or the peeling back of the layers, you know, the sort of re-emergence or the new growth of your selfhood, what was occurring in the late 2000s, 2006 to 2008, that you can remember that has a link to those sorts of topics. Who were you then? Who are you now? Is there a link between those two versions of yourself? And what is the next incarnation of your selfhood? It takes 18 to 19 years for the dragon to come back to the same place that it was. And so it could be really exciting. It could be a really fruitful time for you. It could be, I can see you sort of stepping into this next role or this next version really brightly and really beautifully. Well, with this emphasis on your relationships and your relationship styles. Now, to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, this particular eclipse, this prelude into the journey that we're all going to be taking next year, is in square with Jupiter in Gemini in your 10th house, where you're publicly perceived. So there's pressure attached to this moment. However, Jupiter actually does beautiful work in Pisces. So let's see if we can relax into it, and let's see if we can take the offer. Now, we don't do any sort of interactive spiritual work with eclipses because it's unstable. You know, it's a great way to remember it. It's like the energy of the galaxy, of the planets, is unstable. The moon itself, our emotional anchor point, is being eclipsed. So, you know, you can feel that already. You can feel that kind of, I've been feeling really kind of confused, and really, I've felt really that I've been vacillating between one frame of mind and another, and another, and another, and another. I've been feeling really conflicted, but I have used my knowledge of astrology to create some sort of anchor point for myself, to be like, well, just let it happen, allow it to, you know, investigate, be inquisitive during this time. Don't be frightened. And if you're frightened, why? What's it reminding you of? This has all been really valuable work for me in the lead up to these eclipses. Parts of my old self, I remember them, felt so powerless. This work has been such a great salve for me, and there has been moments where I've dropped all of my skills and have said to myself, what's the point in predicting or kind of working with the astrology if you can't stop anything from occurring, you know? What's the point in finding a definition for a certain aspect if you can't stop the pain? And this isn't to say that any pain is going to arrive for you, Virgo Rising, but I'm just trying to describe to you the different ways that I've kind of had to redefine how I allow astrology into my life. It's too often the case, and it's seductive in that way too, that you can look at it as like, you know, foretelling a bad omen. You don't have to look too far. It was used for that in the past, you know, it was used for that to sort of calculate the success or failure of you know, emperors. We're evolving, aren't we? And so we don't do that anymore. And the last thing that I wish to do at times like this is to add to any of the mental turmoil or the confusion or the fear that folks might be feeling at this, you know, harsher, the reality of this harsh time. So let's do the best that we can with the information that we have. Let's take the excuse that eclipse season allows a bit of a reprieve from the hyper focus on the work or on trying to understand. Let's think about yourself and the blossoming or the birthing in your relationships. That's where we really need to focus. This feels to me that is enough at this time. This square in your 10th house where you're publicly perceived might aid this moment because it's Jupiter. But remember, Jupiter in Gemini is combative and is frenetic and is nervous in their energy. So take that how you will. If it's clear, direct communication that you need, you can have it, because Mercury is back in Virgo, your guiding light, the one that makes sense to you. Mercury, the planet that helps us understand, that gives us information. Mercury in Virgo does, hopefully, some good work. So looking at the rest of the astrology that I can see after this eclipse on the 18th, then from Friday the 20th all the way through to Thursday the 26th, the following week is full of these aspects in Virgo. Virgo is doing some really precise work in their relationship to other planets. On Friday the 20th, the Sun in Virgo will make a trine with Uranus in Taurus. So as far as a clarity around the sort of revolutionary thinking that you've been needing to kind of find the definition for or articulate in yourself. You know, revolution is the word of the moment, and through any revolution there is, unfortunately, it takes a lot of heat and a lot of power to overthrow the current status quo. But there's support with the Sun and Uranus at that moment. So when thinking about your own sense of, revolutionary tactic or revolutionary thought processes, when thinking about what needs to be destructed and restructured, what does the new structure look like? That's what Uranus always asks us. And I don't think that it can be as rigid and as sort of sharp as it was before. The consciousness, if you like, there's no stuffing that cat back in the bag. No offense. There's no putting that back in. Like people are waking up in many different ways. Hopefully, unity will come. Venus is in Libra right now, and they're sort of craving that as well. Anyway, then on Saturday the 21st, the Sun will be in opposition to Neptune in Pisces. There will be a bit of tension, or maybe if you think about it, a spotlight on the delusion, perhaps. When you think about your relationships or think about people that you care about, there might be something that feels like delusion, or there's an emphasis on delusional behavior, or it could be a little bit of like, hanging on a wing and a prayer. Let's face it, let's flip the definition. It could be good. It could be something that you feel cosmically connected to your loved ones once more after a bit of time that you just needed that sort of warm up, that heat to come back to. On the 22nd, which is Sunday, the Sun will make a trine, so a line of support again, but this time with Pluto in Capricorn. So this time in... I mean, it's... Just describing it, it's pretty sort of hectic, and maybe it's the Pisces-ness, but I'm sort of like spinning out here. I think that there's someone else here in the room that's helping me along today, because for the longest time I was just unable to articulate this. But can you see this, like the Sun is sort of like trine Uranus, then trine Pluto in all of the earth signs, and we're speaking about revolution, we're speaking about rebellion, but we're also speaking about like disintegration here, change. Capricorn in the global sense can represent power structures, it can represent financial systems, it can represent, unfortunately, but it can, systems of supremacy. Because if we think about Capricorn in the definition of being, climbing to the apex of the mountain, you know, striving to reach the top on a global capacity. You know, I think of capitalism, I don't know about you, but that's something that can be, if we talk about those aspects as being hit one after the other just in this 1 week, and it includes you in your first house, Virgo, this could be really great. On your birth chart, it's your 9th house and your 5th house. So your creative self-expression and your fun, your access to having a family and children, and also your ideas around religion and the structures and hierarchies of religion. So that's interesting to me that those 2 points are being supported by the warmth in your selfhood. I really like that. Looking to the rest of the week, it's Mercury that's making those same trines. So the sun warms it up, then Mercury brings the information and then makes those supports again. So you don't have to be starting a family, Virgo rising. You don't have to be, you know, on the warpath to sort of reacquaint or reimagine your sense of faith. But there's something here that really includes you, and it really includes your ability to translate information, to get to the bottom of what is true and what isn't, and to really name the necessity for some of these systems of supremacy to change, because there's something of like a bit of a lust for power that we can feel as well. The subjugated can't take it any longer and are standing up. Unfortunately, in some ways, they're almost using this sort of... No, I won't finish that thought. And let's bring it down. Sorry, Virgo. I want to... Yeah, it's eclipse season, so you could be... There's a lot... Okay, to close out that astrological help, there's a lot of help that you might play a part in during these next couple of weeks. This eclipse in Pisces wants us to sort of meld and to seep and to, you know, allow the possibility of another reality. I'll leave it at that. Let's get you some tarot and then call it a day. Oh, golly. Yeah, I've been super confused and super like labored in my movements and like trying as hard as I can to stick to task and stick to structure, and I will, but there's been a lot of work that I've needed to do in the way that I'm unpicking or unpacking my the limitations that I've put on my own intelligence. When the confusion starts to happen, or the dissociation, or just that when there's, for me, it's been lots of different ideas that I've not been able to hang on to. And it's, yeah, it's great, but it's also like it just sort of spins me out a bit. I get really dizzy. I've been really dizzy for the past couple of weeks, and I kind of want this moment, this Pisces eclipse, to reveal something for me in the way that I can include that, you know, everything, everywhere, all at once, part of myself in with the other stuff, and the structure will come. But at this time, and thinking about Pluto and Capricorn too, and like, you know, destroying old structures to grow new ones, there's something about the way that I like am so critical sometimes of my ability to focus, that hopefully will reinvent itself at this eclipse. First and foremost, take the moment. If what I've been saying to you, Virgo Rising, has been, you've been identifying with it, just as far as like the confusion, or it's just sort of like there's just so much to think about, I'm overwhelmed, I want to burrow, like if that's, or I can't burrow, because when I do burrow, then I just stay there, stare at the wall. The worry needs to be felt. I was listening to this definition of what actual meditation is. And it's not, it doesn't always have to be raising up and finding a moment of, you know, clarity and peace and calm. Meditation can sometimes be sitting in the moment and really registering how you feel and allowing it, rather than trying to mask it with some of these other distractions. The Four of Swords speaks about like required rest in order to heal, you know, in order to start stopping some of that sharpness in the mind. And maybe some of that sharpness in the mind has got to do with relationships and or lack thereof, breaks in relationship. This is what the Two of Cups upside down can sometimes speak about, loss of connection. Maybe this moment in your life you've been really lamenting the loss of connection, and it could be something literal, as in relationships over, or it could be something where you don't feel energetically connected to somebody or some people anymore, and you don't know how to reclaim that connection. I would really encourage you to think about the idea that Mercury is on your side, and in the week preceding this eclipse, we're still in eclipse season, but in the weeks preceding this, there will be some clarity. Hopefully there'll be some clarity that you'll get to enjoy within your relationships, because this does feel a bit painful to me, this break. That's the King of Swords in reverse, and so that doesn't seem to be someone working from their most intelligent self. This feels like someone that has misconstrued some information or has been irresponsible with the truth as they see it. And rather than diving into further conflict, further arguments, rather than that, Virgo Rising, I'd really like for you, if you can at all do it, during eclipse season, which starts on Wednesday the 18th, when the Pisces eclipse in your 7th house will occur, for the week after that, remain open, keep your ears open when thinking about relationships or disconnection. Work out if that's the reality, and hopefully Mercury will help you fossick through some of that intelligence. Work out if that's the fact of the matter is that there's been a rift and there's been a break and you're grieving that loss, or work out if there's been distance and your swords have misconstrued something to a point where you feel rejected, or you feel that there's been a break there, or you feel cast adrift. I only say that because I know how my mind works, and sometimes, and I don't know why, and I wish that it didn't, but sometimes with a gap in communication, my paranoia, which is something that I work on every day, starts to inhibit my worldview, and that, latent experiences of rejection or abandonment start to muddle my foresight, and I start to think that have been cast out rather than that actually happening. And then it takes connecting with people that I love, that I have not heard from a while, and, you know, putting my hand up for responsibility in that too. Who's not making the connection can be a two-way street sometimes. I don't hold it against you in this very polarizing moment to have some of that worry happen for you, Virgo Rising. I do want you to take the offer from the eclipse to try and ease the tension of your back just for this moment, and allow Mercury to do some of the explaining in the week after this eclipse. Doesn't have to be on topics of your pleasure, creativity, children, or your religion. It might include some of those things. They used to say, don't talk about religion and politics around a dinner table. It's almost impossible not to at this current moment. And I think that there's something that we need to address. And we also need to get back to a place where we feel comfortable enough to discuss things like religion and politics, and perhaps even potentially disagree, and not be cast out or in loggerheads. In the dinner table context specifically, we can't mirror the chasm of the outer world in our inner world. There has to be room to talk, and to strategize and to share. Yeah, that's what I'll say. Much love to you, Virgo Rising. If you're still here with me, I can't remember what emoji I said. Who cares? You don't have to put an emoji. Just write to me. Let me know how you've been feeling, how eclipses work for you. If you wanted to learn more about the dragon, the lunar nodes, and you're in Melbourne, I'm hosting a workshop on the lunar nodes at the Muses of Mystery, which is a shop in the Nicholas building, on the 29th of September. So in the lead up to the next eclipse, which is the one in Libra, I'll be doing some group work at Muses. So if you wanted to book a ticket for that, you can find the link in the description below. If you'd like to support my work, you can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month, or put some money in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. And if you'd like for me to draw your birth chart, if you've been thinking about it for a while and you'd like to make an appointment, head to my website, umaruby.com, and book the spirit reading, and I'll draw you a birth chart and I'll read it to you via Zoom, and then I'll post it to you in the mail, so you've got the hard copy after that. Much love to you, Virgo Rising. I hope that wasn't too confusing. In fact, it probably was, and oh well, too bad, so sad. I'll be with you in time and further read for the next solar eclipse in Libra. So until then, take care.